Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have a very interesting Rob's Rambling. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I want to talk about what a knife should cost and what I will pay for a knife. So basically there's the conflict of, I think that knife should cost X. And then I'm willing to pay X for a knife. And a lot of times we look at knives and we say, that's too much. I would never pay that. And then we look at a knife and we really like it and we go, well, I'm willing to pay that. So you could look at a knife and you can say, is it worth that much? And you'd say, no, absolutely not. Are you willing to pay it? Yes. I first heard that from Metal Complex and I thought it was really funny. At first, I kind of rubbed me the wrong way and I thought, what is he talking about? But you know, he made a lot of sense. And I think he heard it from someone else, and I don't remember exactly where he heard it from, but basically, maybe it was a Knife Nuts podcast, I think maybe. Yeah, I think it was a Knife Nuts podcast. And it was like the difference between, here's a knife, this is what I think it's worth, and great, you know, I say it's worth $100, and then they say, well, we're selling this knife for $150. Well, yeah, I'm willing to pay $150 because I really want the knife, right? So there's always that challenge. And you know, we all have those hard rules. I'd never pay that much. Never pay that much, right? You get a pair of two. It's like, oh yeah, I'd get the lightweight pair of two. I'd never pay more than 130 bucks for a knife. Never, right? And then you find, well, there's crew wear, there's 15V, there's, you know, S45 VN, which was a cool steel when it first came out. Still great steel, don't get me wrong, but it's not one of those, you know, super steels, right? Maybe 3V or 10V or something like that, or M3 steel, or, you know, all the fancy, crazy steels out there, S110V, I don't know if I said that already, but there's a lot of things out there that you're like, man, that's really cool. And those knives are worth, you know, they're worth more, but they cost a lot more. Now, is it really worth that much more in some cases? Probably not. But because we want them, we're willing to buy them. I mean, look at the 15V that came out, and it was a little higher than I thought maybe it should be, and it sold out really fast. I didn't even have a chance at it. If they could have charged an extra 50 bucks and they would still sell out because of the super elusive steel that is. But, you know, I'm not a person that necessarily shops for steel, but if it happens to be there as an option, I really enjoy that. So, you know, looking at the knives here, you can see some of the things that, you know, you might say, I'd never pay that much for a knife. And at times I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't either. But then I'd say, well, but I would, it's not worth that, but I'm willing to pay it, right? You look at the TRM Adam. When I first got this, I had it just with the basic flat carbon fiber scales. And it was, you know, it was relatively inexpensive and compared to this variant. Now, this variant has the contoured titanium scales. This was as much as, if not a little bit more than the knife. So this doubled the price of the knife. And, you know, people will say, well, you can get that over in China for a whole lot less, right? Well, yeah, like, I mean, this is beautiful, no doubt. And this was not cheap, but this is very gorgeous titanium milling. But this is USA made, and they do a great job. And what you get for USA made, to me, it's worth it. Some people may say, I'd never pay that much, and I get that, and I respect that, and that's fine. That's your money. Buy what you want, what you're willing to pay for, right? But this is, to me, absolutely worth it. The milling and everything. They even had a fancier version. I didn't get it. Kind of wish I did, but that's all right. I'm still happy with this one, and I don't need another scale just to have another scale. I like that. So I was willing to pay it. It may not be, I think that one happens to be worth what it's worth, but there you go. Just like the McNeese. I mean, again, this is a USA made knife, really fantastic quality. It's a Grail knife that I was able to get a hold of, and I think it's worth every penny that I paid for this, right? I think it's a great knife. Some people say I would never spend on more than $200, $300 on a knife, right? It's definitely going to be more than all of that. So probably more. Well, it is more than that together, right? So the question is, you know, what do you want? What knife are you willing to buy? And yeah, it may not be worth it in the materials, but the design, the uniqueness of the knife gives it extra value. It gives it intrinsic value. The design itself makes it beautiful and adds value to it. Just like the Nimbles. I liked all the Nimbles, but none of them really spoke to me as much as the Relative. When they took the flip route, I could drop this and not get caught on my finger, and if it passed the finger, then it would guillotine, and this blade would come down and cut my hand. And so the Nimble and even the Nimble X were just not my cup of tea, because I got meaty fingers. I don't have skinny little fingers, so it always was an issue for me. But this is like the perfect knife. The action, it's just wonderful. And so, you know, is it worth what they were asking for? Probably not. Should it be a little cheaper? Probably. I mean, I know like Metal Complex and several other people thought the same, but I think the design of this knife is the best EMP EDC knife that's out there, and it's one of my favorite knives of the year. And I did something I would never do. I bought two. Here's a black version, and here's a plain titanium version. Both titanium. One's a drop point, one's a Tanto with a clip point. One is an LMAX 20 CPM 20 CV, and one's an LMAX, and one's all blacked out, and one is not. And I like that. I like that a lot. And I broke a rule. You can see LMAX here. You can see the CPM 20 CV right there. I don't know if you can see that. But I broke my rule in buying these two knives. And, you know, is it worth buying two? Probably not, but I'm willing to pay it, and I did. Just like this one right here. This is just a plain Para 2, paramilitary 2. But I put golly, fat carbon Arctic Storm. I couldn't think of it. Sorry, guys. Went brain hiccup there for a second. But fat carbon Arctic Storm scales on here. I love these. And in the sun, they're really, really gorgeous, by the way. I wish it was chamfered a little bit better, but I still love these. And this is a knife I got for my wife for an anniversary present. So I love this. A little lynch clip here, and then we got the CME and all that stuff. And this made this knife way more expensive than what it was. Some people would say, well, I'd never pay that much for a Para 2. That's ridiculous, because I go out and beat the snot out of my Para and whack wood and, you know, cut steel bars with it, and you know, throw it in lava pits to cut the metal and the lava and the stone, and I chisel stone and tablets out of with my Para 2. I don't know, whatever you do with it. I'm being crazy here, but anyways, whatever you could, you know, people could do whatever they want with it. It's your knife. You know, if you want to run it over with a tractor, go for it, right? I don't care. It's your knife. But to me, it was worth it. It's worth the extra things that I had added here, and I like it, and I like everything that I added to it, and so to me, I enjoyed that. By the way, this is the Spyderco short clip, which is kind of cool. It's a little shorter than the regular one. I like that, but it's absolutely worth it to me like that. So, is it? I mean, well, let me rephrase that. I'm willing to pay that. Is it worth that? Probably not. But am I willing to pay it? Absolutely. So then we get into like here, Spyderco Para 2. I mean, Para 3, the Spyderco Para 3. This by itself is not a super expensive knife. Again, this is CPM S45VN steel, made in the USA, but this right here is RG Custom Works, RG Custom Metalworks scales. These are gorgeous, and look at that clip. It's contoured, and it has a CME that's different. That's from OCD for EDC. He makes these. By the way, check them out. If you want any of your Spyderco compression locks, you can get these. But this right here is just so gorgeous. Made this a really, really high-end knife as far as I'm concerned. I love the milling and the radial pattern. It's just really gorgeous. Some people, when they find out how much I paid, they'll be like, there's no way I'd ever pay that much. As a matter of fact, I think somebody posted that on one of my videos, and I'm like, you know, then don't buy it. It's not for you. And I respect that. It is your money. You do with what you want, and you buy what you want. But I suspect the people who say that I would never spend that, they probably go out and buy something that I would look at them and say, there's no way I would ever spend that. And, you know, that happens. That does happen. So that's interesting. And I think I'm about to lose my battery here real quick. So let me just plug this in real quick. Give me just a second, guys. I don't want the video to die. So I'm going to see if I can get this plugged in while we're still talking. Oh, good. All right. I got it in. All right. So I would be willing, you know, to spend the money on that. Because I like it. To me, this is a beautiful aesthetic. I think it's gorgeous. Most people look at this will say, yeah, that is really beautiful. But the question is it worth the money? And for me, it is, because it's something I want. Now, for some, this might be a collection piece I'd never carry, but I carry everything I want. And it's very beautiful collection carry piece worthy. And I like that. So then we get into this. Here's a Trevor Berger. This is the Urban EDC LC. This is Urban EDC production knife. They started making these with Trevor Berger as a design he came up with. And this is a production knife made by Riot. Not super cheap, but it's not super expensive like a custom from Trevor Berger. But it's a great knife. I had this on pre-order, and it's one of the reasons why I don't do pre-orders, because it was over a year, and that was too long for me. I can't do that again. But for me, oops, I can flick it left-handed, sorry. It's been a while. I haven't carried it for a while, sorry. But, you know, some people will say, well, I wouldn't pay $300 for that, but, you know, I would, and it's worth it to me. I think it's nice. Now, I did, again, I modified this one. I modified the clip on here. This was not rounded. It was kind of a shredder. A lot of people sold their knife because they got really annoyed by that, but that's a super easy fix, and it was worth it. And I thought, yeah, I bet it's not like that on the custom. And I did tune the detent, and I put skiff washers in there, and it made it a beautiful, beautiful action. Nice drop shut. And guess what? Here's a Trevor Berger Custom XL made by him, and you can see this because it's got a full belt hand satin finish hollow grind blade. I mean, that is just beautifully. I don't know if you can see that hollow grind, but that is ridiculous. It's super thin edge, and the action on this is absolutely another world. But look at that. It is beautifully rounded, goes in and out of the pocket really, really nicely. And yeah, that is a very different clip than the production version. And you know, so to me, there was a lot of I can tell the difference between the two. Yes, this is very similar. It gives you a beautiful touch of a production version, but here's the custom version. Yeah, it is absolutely different. And is it worth it? I mean, you know, is it worth the money for this? Some people are going to say, no way, no way. Look, you can do a production over in China, and it's 1/3 the price of this knife, right? Yeah, you're right. You could. But this is made by Trevor Berger, custom knife by him, out of his production. And I got to tell you, to me, it's absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. The quality of this knife, the things that are done in this knife are just phenomenal. Now, this is purple fat carbon. I don't know if you can even see it, but it's very, very lightly purple infused in there. There's some purple fat carbon. It looks gorgeous in the sun. But to me, it's got just beautiful amount of purple that's very subtle. I like that in a knife like this. And this titanium, so beautifully chamfered. Everything is rounded. There's not a corner anywhere nothing was missed, right? And this edge is crazy sharp. And the action on this is just beautifully buttery. Yeah. So, is it worth the money? I mean, it depends on your perspective, right? For most people, no, it's not. Are you willing to pay for this? Most people probably, no, I am. I was. And you know, it was the biggest purchase I've ever made, but I enjoyed this. I really, really, really have enjoyed this. And it was a beautiful piece to add to my collection. And I carry this, and I use this knife. So, you know, that's when I thought of the purchase of this. Would I carry this? Yes, I do. And I do carry it, as I do my McNeese, as I do my TRM, as I do my Spyderco with RG Custom Metalworks designs, as I do my Para 2, as I do my relatives here. Some people might be like, oh, I got to keep this, not carry this. No, I like carrying this, and I'm going to carry this whether I get scratches on there, and I do get scratches on my knife because I want to. So to some people, they'd be like, well, now because you carried it, it's not worth it because they're worth less. Well, worth less, not worthless. They're worth not as much, right? Because of scratches and things like that. And because I carry this, you might see scratches on here. Surprisingly, that one doesn't. I don't see scratches, but well. Yeah, you can see a few nicks here, but it's stone washed, so it almost looks like it's supposed to be part of that, right? So there you go. But I do like this, and to me, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it because I can enjoy this knife, and I want to enjoy my knives. And so, you know, some of these knives, are they worth the money that's being asked? I don't know. I happen to think Trevor Berger's custom work is worth it. I happen to think Jonathan McNee's work is worth it. I happen to think TRM's work is worth it. I happen to think RG Custom Metalworks scales are worth it. I happen to think Fat Carbon, like the Arctic Storm, are worth it. I happen to think the EMP EDC design and just how he executed this is worth it. I happen to think the Reop production version is worth it. And I have many more examples that I think are worth it. Yeah, so for me, you could argue, you could make a case and probably be a logical case that it's too expensive based on other places. I get it, yes. Am I willing to pay for it? Yes. Now, there's a lot of knives out there that you may love, and you say they're absolutely worth it. And I'll look at them and I go, I think they're not worth it, and I'm not willing to pay for that, right? There's some designs I do not like. Matter of fact, something recently, I didn't even put it on the table. I said I was not a Rick Hinderer fan because I had a Jurassic, and it just wasn't my cup of tea. Well, lo and behold, look what I have here. I have an XM18. I have an, XM18 with the JG10 scales. Now, it came with the red ones. I didn't like the way they look because they look more maroon, so I didn't care for that. But I thought this would look really nice until I can get the titanium ones. Very subtle. I like this design. The action's beautiful. It's non-flipper, which to me made this knife really worth it as far as choking up and everything. And I switched the position because it always comes with tip down instead for tip up. I like that personally. But the action on this is just absolutely ridiculous. It's just fantastic. Now, some people are like, is it worth the money? Well, you probably will. Some people will say absolutely not, because some people won't even be willing to pay $100 for a knife. And that's your money, your decision. And most likely, if you're watching this, is because you're either looking for a new knife or you like knives and you just want to see what's out there. And at some point, some of these things look interesting and you haven't turned away yet because you're either steaming and fuming and you want to write and type something because you're telling me how wrong I am, which is fine. Share away, because I love to hear your perspective. I may not agree with you and we may have to agree to disagree, and that's fine. That's okay. Right? Share your perspective. Maybe you have an insight, something I haven't seen, right? But at the same time, maybe you're at that point where that $100 you'd never break, you're about to break. Maybe you're about to buy a $150 knife. And you're like, well, okay, that's worth it. Well, here's the thing. I had a CRKT, cricket, people call it cricket. It's really Columbia River Technology and CRKT, something, I forget what I can't remember now, but it was a $40 knife. And then I bought a Benchmade at Cabela's. It was on sale, and it was an orange mini barrage assisted knife, and it was like 90 some bucks after I had some coupon discount, and it was about just $100, like maybe $95, just under $100 with tax and everything. And it was like a $100 knife. It was the first time I ever broke that barrier, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But I handled it, comparing it to my other knife, and I thought, wow, this is just a little bit better. It's nice. And I thought, I would never spend over, and I did. I spent over $100. Then next thing you know, I'm buying some other Benchmades that are $200. I thought I would never spend $200 on a knife. And I thought it was ridiculous anybody would spend that much. I'd never spend that much on a knife. And then when I broke 300, I thought, oh, I'd never spend that. That's ridiculous. Then when I broke 400, I thought, I'd never. Broke 500, oh, I'd never. Broke 600, oh, 700, oh, 800. You know, and then you get into 900. You know, I haven't broken 1,000 yet. I haven't. Would I do it? Yeah, if it was a knife that I felt I would carry, I would do it. But I haven't found the knife that I would carry, and I'm not at the point where I'm willing to spend that for a knife to carry. Do I think I will at some point? Yes, I do. Absolutely. I used to say no, never, but until I do. And but I'm not at the point either where I have collection knives that I keep in my collection that I'd never use. All my knives I will use. And so that's just the reality of that. They're all collection pieces that I'm going to use. They're not pieces that I would not carry. So there you go. Whether you agree or disagree with that, you know, that's absolutely up to you. And certainly, you know, your call, whatever, but that's for me. All right. So getting back to the topic, the rambling, you know, is it worth that money? Sometimes you can look at the parts, you can look at the cost. Yeah, with the inflation and rising costs, are some things getting jacked up a little too quickly? Probably. Now, you know, you look at people, they got to build these business models, okay? If it costs you, you know, you do know how things work, right? People have to make, typically in the produce and perishable industry, there's a 70 to 80% markup on the cost of goods, right? So if you buy milk, they probably pay 20 cents on the dollar for that milk, and then you're paying, you know, 80% markup. And the reason why they do that is because it's perishable, and they have to account for the shrinkage from perished goods, stuff that they don't sell that gets destroyed, and they have to build that into the overall cost of things. And so that is you would be surprised how much destroyed stuff and not used stuff there is out there in perishable goods. So that's built in. Now, even in other materials like specialty manufacturing, you know, it's usually anywhere from a 30 to 40 to 50% markup. So let's just say, as an example, I don't know what it cost them. I have no idea. I'm purely speculating. This is just a speculating example, so I don't know. I have no insight into this. But let's say this is a $400 knife. Let's say it cost him $200 to make, production, manufacturing, get it shipped to him, get ready, and then ship it out to you. So it's $200. That's $200 profit. And you think, oh, that's $200 profit. He didn't need that. He only needs $50 profit. Well, he's got to come up with research and development. He's got to pay his overhead costs, like his bills. He's got to pay people, you know, that work for him, people who help him ship stuff, and people who help him design stuff, people maybe who do AutoCAD. He's got to pay for the manufacturing to be able to get into the, you know, he's got to have money for the next run of material, right? He's not going to all do pre-orders on everything, but he may. But he's got to have all those costs. He's got to cover, you know, his ability to come up with new designs and be able to work with them and negotiate these prices. So he's got all these various things that he has to deal with and do. And these are all realities of manufacturing. And so then he sells it for $400. But then he's also got, what if he's got a defective one? So he gets one returned because there was some manufacturing oversight. He can't go back to, you know, Bestech and say, hey, this, you know, he might have enough to ask him for a credit or something, but there comes a point when that ship has sailed and he does his QC, and if he doesn't catch it, then it becomes on his, you know, on his shoulders to carry it. So that's why he'll have some extra inventory of this. He'll have maybe an extra 20, 30, 50 knives of the same thing, so that if he gets somebody says, hey, my knife is, you know, it's not locking up correctly, it's not whatever, he'll send it back to him and he'll replace it for you. That's part of that warranty, you know, whether it's the, you know, first 30 days or a year, whatever, the warranty, he's got to cover those costs of warranty. So those are just realities that you have with knives, okay? So you know, you look at this and you go, well, somebody else, like, you know, that do these small runs, and, you know, they'll say, well, they may charge less. Well, yeah, you're right, because they do smaller runs or whatever, and there's no risk built in, and if they get 200 knives, they can inspect everyone, check them, make sure they're perfect before they, and yeah, but if you sell 2,000 knives, that's harder to do. You do spot checking. You can't check everyone, right? There's all these things that you have to build in. And so, yeah, it may not be worth that, but in the end, if you understand it, it might be. Just like this guy, RG Metal Custom Works, you know, the cost for the scale, could someone in a larger manufacturing facility make the same scales for a lot cheaper? Probably. It's a one-man show. The guy came up with this design and this work, and it's done so well. It's beautiful. And to me, you know, I think it's worth it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And I got on the wait list for it, and I'm so happy I got it. And yeah, at some point, could someone, if they wanted to try to compete with them, and yeah, they could, right? They really could. It would be kind of uncool. In the knife community, we frown on that. If someone came up with a design, like some scales, we don't go out and just, you know, try to push them out. There's not this big company coming out and squeeze the small guy. If you do that, it's not cool. You don't do that. I mean, it's just like the baby banter, you know, and the banter and the big banter. People make some scales for them. If we came out and saw every one of those scales and started making their own and tried to sell them, people would be like, no, we're done with you. Because you can do the knife, you can do certain variations, but don't take it away from the small guy. Because like Unlock Composites, I have, here's my baby banter one that I got recently. This is the KnifeWorks exclusives S35 VN blade steel, but I changed the scales out. This is Unlock Composites, a guy, he makes these. If Civivi, we decided to, we're gonna make these exactly like this guy and take his work away from him because he designed this, he came up with this idea, I would never buy this, and I would be very ticked off at Civivi, and I might not buy anything from Civivi ever again. And they know that, and they understand that. And so there's that respect you got to give in the industry for all of that. So there you go. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of my rambling on some of these things. You know, is it worth it? Maybe not. Maybe it is. But then again, what you're willing to pay for is really what you're saying it's worth, right? Now, if you're not willing to pay for something, it's not worth it to you. But if you're willing to pay it, it is worth it to you. And you can say that's overcharged, right? I see other reviewers talk about, oh yeah, that's too much, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, they see a design they like and they go buy it. Like, yeah, I said it's too much, but I wanted it and I liked it. So it is worth it to you. If it's the right fit, if it's the right combination, if it's the right design, if it's the right materials, it is worth it to you. Like this right here, McNeese, some people may look at this, oh, it's too plain Jane, blah, 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 I don't like it. But he has this other one that's frag pattern and has all jig pattern, and you look at the jig and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta have that. It's absolutely worth it, and it's worth it, and it's even more expensive than this. And for me, I was like, yeah, I wasn't willing to pay an extra 100, 150 bucks for the fancy stuff. I liked it just like this because it's a great user knife, it's got nice texture, I enjoy this. And for me, I'm like, that's not worth it to me, but this is worth it, right? So that's all right. So there you go. All right. So the question comes back to what is it worth and what is not, and you really kind of have to answer that question yourself. You know, are some of these things really, truly, 100% worth it? And if they're not, then then don't buy them. But if they're worth it, absolutely 100% consider buying them. I would absolutely say it's certainly something you should certainly consider and put before yourself, and then maybe go for it, right? So there you go. All right, well, that's really my thoughts here. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think? I'd love to hear your comments down below. Please feel free. Let me know if you totally disagree, if you agree with me, you think I'm full of it, or you think there's some merit to what I said, or maybe you have a different angle on it. I'd love to hear it. I do enjoy that. I learn from you guys, so please feel free to comment. I do appreciate that, and I try to interact with you, so just know that. I try to respond to everything. Hey, if you found this content fun, interesting, worthwhile, or entertaining, would you please consider hitting the like button down below, the like button, and then if you hit the like button and you like this video, would you please consider hitting the subscribe button? Subscribing and liking the videos really helps out the channel, helps me produce more content, do more things. I'm very appreciative of that. If you've done all that, then maybe consider hitting the notification button so you can be notified of future content when it drops. And still, if you want to maybe check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. That would be awesome. Thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.